Yeah.
I'm not going to hit the possibility
And-
of a Saudi Arabian interview. Getting back to my questions, you just described a typical day for yourself in Saudi Arabia. Could you tell us and perhaps elaborate a little bit more about the living conditions that not only you had, but the troops had as well?
Yes, sir. The living conditions, like a lot of the other things, varied from one town to another. And it's kind of a neat story. Just last night I was talking to a wives group from 3rd ACR and talking about all of the great things that they had in Saudi Arabia for the soldiers to do there, except for 3rd ACR soldiers. The facilities that were available to some of 11th Brigade soldiers were just plain and simple not available to the 3rd ACR soldiers. And I'll talk a little bit about those. Specifically, in all of the areas, it kind of works in two phases. When you first get to the country, your primary concern is survival, okay, and then survival, through the end of the day, and then survival should a hostility of some sort break out, and then finally ultimate survival comfortably. So, and over that period of time, your conditions change. So initially, a lot of the soldiers, even the very first flights, were actually sleeping out in the open, on cots in some cases, if not, then on sleeping bags, right next to some F-15s in some cases. And, that quite obviously is the very first phase that I was talking about. As it matured and we were able to get some host nation support, we were able to contract for some facilities and for some better living conditions, then it got quite a bit better. But the overall first 2 months that a unit is there, it's got to work on its survivability and its site improvement almost 24 hours a day. There's some mandatory training and some mandatory events that have to be done, but as far as any big maneuver type exercises, any of the big exercises that perhaps some of the infantry units are available to do, the larger units have got to work on their survivability. And it was only at the point where I left the country in the middle of October that the units were starting to shift their gears and be able to put a lot of emphasis into the tough, challenging training that they all wanted to be doing from the start. Because the majority of their day was really taken up with improving their living conditions. But the result of those living conditions really showed the effort that went into it. In the Dhahran area, there were some units that slept in trailers with fans, and that was probably the worst condition there. Was simply just having a fan in the trailer with a bunk bed or a cot. Some of the others, even on the same site, had air conditioning in their trailers, and they had planned to get it for all of the trailers. Some of the units actually, as I mentioned before, had accommodations in a major warehouse facility with all the air conditioning that would go with a big air-conditioned warehouse. So, their facilities were not bad at all. PX facilities were available to some of the units. In some cases, right next to where they slept, and in other cases, maybe 10 to 15 minutes away. This was generally in the Dhahran area. Trailers, warehouse facilities. One of the units even lived in something similar to a hotel out on a barge, almost like a cruise ship, if you will. The barge had a bunch of trailers placed on it, one on top of the other, with all the appropriate structure. Looked almost like a big cruise ship when you saw it from a distance. So the living conditions in the Dhahran area itself even varied quite a bit. Over in the Riyadh area, the living conditions ranged from what we called Chudville. I'll elaborate a little more on that in a moment. To simple barracks facilities. Some of a majority of the units lived in big barracks facilities of one sort or another. The block-type barracks that many soldiers are familiar to, with a long hallway that looks kind of like a college dormitory, was generally the norm. Two exceptions were the types of facilities that were available to one of the other major commands that was there. One of the major commands started out living in in what I mentioned as Chudville. And the term Chud comes from an old movie, Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers. And that exactly describes the way I was living when I first moved to Riyadh. It was an underground garage-type complex where all of these people lived in one big open bay. You know, the males were in one big open bay. The females were in a separate big open bay, and we all had access to, you know, our own male and female showers. But it was all underground, a couple of basements under. You know, the air circulation was not real good. There were a few fans available, and there was a lot of talk about getting respiratory diseases, and we've even got some nice humor that was written on Chudville, talking about how you know, we're all praying that the respiratory illness that's threatening us all really increases and tears up our bodies even more, so we'll be more miserable down in this facility. But having paid our dues in Chudville, we got to move into a villa complex a little bit later on. The same people that lived in this underground dwelling later moved into a villa. And I use the term villa because that's actually what they called it. That's what I called it. It was like a condominium complex where each little condominium is actually a 5-bedroom, 3-bath apartment, and each soldier's got their own bed and their own bedroom, and they share a kitchen and 3 bathrooms in almost a triplex or a quadruplex little area. This one was obviously the better of the two. You know, though Chudville did have its advantages, the conditions out in the villa allowed for a little bit more freedom to get out and do physical training the way everybody liked to do them. It allowed for a little more opportunity to have some social activities, outdoor type picnics, and live much more the way soldiers were used to living. The facilities there in Riyadh at some of the other locations even included swimming pools for some of the units, invitations to work out at some nice gymnasiums. In general, you know, the living conditions were only restricted by the innovativeness of the commanders, as well as what was actually available in the town or in the area. You know, obviously in some areas when there's nothing at all available, you would think, well, we must have to live in a tent if there's nothing else here. But in a short period of time, even in some locations where there was initially nothing but sand, when I left, there was a mini town. And it's kind of amazing the way that stuff like that can grow in a little over 30-day time period. The facilities themselves, as long as we were not invading the Saudi Arabians' privacy, there were many occasions where we were invited to even share some facilities with some of the Saudi Arabians. One particular facility is the one that they're using now for recreation for many of the soldiers throughout the eastern sector of the country. It's called the Half Moon Bay Recreation Center. And this is quite a nice facility. When I described it to some of the soldiers that had not yet been, the first thing they said is, "Hey, look, don't tell my wife that we've got a facility like this over here." You know, I've been telling her how rough we've got it all this time, and if you tell her that, then I'll never be able to convince her to send me cookies or to feel sorry for me. But the facility itself has sailing, water skiing, scuba diving, well, not scuba diving, but snorkeling facilities, bowling all day at no expense, sitting in a cinema and watching movies all day, cheeseburgers, which was kind of a nice plus. It didn't get many cheeseburgers over there. All the cheeseburgers you could eat. Overall, it was a real nice, almost a country club type atmosphere. Of course, for the sunbathing facilities, they were male and female facilities, because even though the facility on a given day was solely for American use, we still had to live within the customs of the Saudi Arabians.
Could you amplify that perhaps a little bit more? How did the average Saudi, as you see them, react to the Americans?
Well, from everything that I actually saw, the only thing that I could detect with the Saudi Arabians was a curiosity. At no time did I ever see anything that looked to me like they had been offended or put off or disconcerted with any of the activities of any of the males or females. However, after the fact, I heard of some occasions that that indicated the true sensitivity of the Islamic culture, ranging from photography to the clothes that people could wear. In one case, evidently a soldier had inadvertently taken a picture of a family, and with the family there was the wife and the children. The wife attired as all Saudi Arabians in full clothing, and after this picture was taken, the local community was quite upset and brought it up through the liaisons there in Saudi Arabia. And at that time, all cameras were taken away from Army soldiers, not so much for security reasons as much as for the prohibiting of taking the wrong types of pictures. Another incident, we all thought at first that the Saudi Arabians' primary concern was with the showing of arms and legs of the females, because that's the way they have their women attired. But they also get offended by men in some occasions wearing shorts or very short T-shirts in the wrong kind of an environment. When you're working out in a gymnasium, it's one thing, but to something that may seem very common to us, to wear a T-shirt into an office building, sometimes takes the Saudi Arabians aback quite a bit. The overall sensitivity is not really understood until you get to seeing that it's not just the rules that they live by, but it's their overall way of life, and it gets on their nerves, even though they won't come out and say it. Because in one particular example, I know a soldier that walked into one of the office buildings where he was allowed to use a telephone, wearing his physical training gear, and he had on his shorts and a sweatshirt. And the next day they asked that particular unit to not go into that building anymore to make the phone calls, because the soldier had gone in there with bare legs, and it was a male soldier. So we learned a lot while we were there. I think in the long term, there's going to be an exchanging of cultures that's going to be more than just one way. And I think all of the recent news, ranging from the protests about the females driving in Saudi Arabia, lends us to believe that things are going to constantly change. It was a lot of fun, but a lot of care was taken to make sure that nothing that we did could offend our hosts there in the country.
Did you or any of the troops you were with have contact with any other foreign elements, and if so, were there any problems arising from that contact?
Other than the two examples that I talked about already, kind of a big coincidence came up when I was moved to Riyadh, where I worked for a while. The actual office location where I ultimately worked ended up being immediately underneath the office of a brigadier general in the Saudi Arabian Air Defense Forces that I had previously met. In the August of 1989, at that time Colonel al-Dosari had come to the Inspector General office here at Fort Bliss to train with us as being an Inspector General. Then when he left, he went to become the Inspector General of the Saudi Arabian Air Defense Force. And while I was there in Riyadh, I thought, well, it'd be kind of neat to look this guy up. So first thing I did is I went to the one building where I expected him to be, and they said, yes, not only is he here, he's in this office. And lo and behold, walked in, and it was like old home week, a big embrace, and of course the customary drinking of tea and coffee, and you get a chance to see their culture truly personified there, because the different class, even within their society, showed up. I'm sitting there having tea with General Aldosari, talking to him about our facilities, about Chudville, and about some of the other things. And he's got what appears to me to be a servant, in long robes over his shoulder, just waiting to pour his tea as soon as he empties his cup. And I talked to him at this time, and he mentioned having a big party and celebrating when things got more peaceful. He seemed a bit apprehensive about what might be ready to happen to his country, and that's understandable. I of course was trying to be very friendly, but also very careful not to make any political international incidents talking about what the U.S. forces are doing and what the Saudi Arabian forces are doing in the country. Very good experience, a good opportunity to see him. One other time I came back to visit with him, and it shows a little more about their culture. That I walked in, and one of the other officers was watching American-made cartoons while he was just on a manning shift on a weekend, and he was watching cartoons there. So it shows that there's a big sharing going on. And the only other incident that I can really recall that was a big interface was when we briefed some of the leadership in the capital of Riyadh, in the Saudi Arabian Air Defense Forces, about the capabilities of our weapon systems. Their big concern was obviously what our mission was, but they went a step further and showed their concern about the survival of their people there, and about the security of their people. And I think it's important to point out that they were very concerned, even though your normal soldier in Riyadh might not think so. The soldier in Riyadh was not allowed to carry a weapon or a protective mask in public for fear of scaring the population there in Riyadh. So it's kind of a statement about what the leadership knew was going on, but they didn't want to necessarily alert their own people right there in the capital of Riyadh.
So you had no contact, then, what you're telling me, with any other of our allies or multinational allies?
Other than brief glimpses and an opportunity to see them as they came into some of the ports, no real personal contacts. And of course, as chief of operations, I did move them from one place to another on the big maps, and it was kind of neat to watch and try to give Joe Reed's best opinion of why they were moving to where they were moving. But no one-on-one contact with any of our other allies.
All right, we'll go ahead and stop at this point, and we'll take it up again with conditions